France is known all around the world for Paris and its monuments such as the Eiffel Tower and the Notre Dame Cathedral. French people are very passionate about their culture and art, which is showcased in many museums like the Louvre. French cuisine is internationally renowned, from bread and macaroons to wine and champagne. Let's take a closer look at the countryside, which offers some of the most enchanting and picturesque towns and villages in all of Europe. Historically significant and culturally rich, they each have unique architecture and beauty. Many of them also have the distinction of being named to the list of Les Plus Beaux Villages de France, the most beautiful villages of France. How to get around in French countryside. The vast majority of visitors to France choose to travel en voiture by car. However, while driving is often the most convenient and comfortable way to get around, it is not always the best, easiest, or even the cheapest option. The French rail network is a great means of transportation, generally reliable and quite reasonably priced too. The public transport in more rural areas can be patchy, with local buses filling the gaps that rail network doesn't reach. French buses are rarely as reliable or frequent as trains. Traveling around France by train is a joy. France's state-owned SNCF Société Nationale des Chemins de Fer Française is one of the best rail networks in Europe, fast, frequent, and often. Various bus and coach companies compete with the SNCF's rail services, offering cheaper but much slower services between large towns and cities. These include Flixbus and the Cross Europe coach network run by Eurolines. Buses are widely used for short-distance travel around cities and within départements regions, especially in areas with relatively few train lines such as Brittany and Normandy. These can be a really useful way of getting around in places where rail travel isn't possible. Car. For maximum freedom, nothing beats a car. Traveling by car in rural areas gives an exceptional freedom to explore. Mooching along peaceful country lanes, passing vineyards and orchards is one of France's greatest joys. One option is to hire a car for a short period as needed, rather than for weeks at a time. Many larger train stations have car hire agencies, so it's possible to combine train and car travel by picking up a rental partway through your journey. Bike. France is superb for cycling. The countryside is gorgeous, and the country has a growing number of urban and rural bike paths and bike lanes known as pistes cyclables and greenways known as voies vertes that make for lovely, traffic-free cycling. Certain regions, the Loire Valley, the Liberian and Provence, and Burgundy are particularly well set up for exploring on two wheels, with dedicated cycling paths. Some along canal towpaths or weaving between orchards and vineyards. Ferry. Another option is to cruise along France's canals and rivers. There are regular ferry services to several French ports. There are rented houseboats as well. The Canal du Midi and the Loire are both popular options. Changes in altitude are taken care of by a system of éclusses locks. Boats generally accommodate from 2 to 12 passengers and are kitted out with bedding and cooking facilities. Things to do in the French countryside. A land of treasures and memories awaits in France. Tread softly through former fields of battle, roam lavender fields and legendary vineyards, or take a slow-moving barge through the lands that inspired Van Gogh and Cézanne. The sensory delights of the provinces offer countless ways to experience authentic France. Visiting the lavender field. Each year beginning in late June, acres of deep purple lavender carpet the fields of Provence. Top lavender viewing spots include Senec Abbey, that was built in 1178, where the flowers are tended by monks, the town of Salt, which holds a lavender festival each August 15, and Ries, famed for its lavender honey. Burgundy barge. Cruising by barge allows you to enjoy a slower pace of travel and get a closer look at the landscape. These luxe vessels travel shallow waterways into the furthest reaches of France so cruisers can soak up the Burgundy countryside. The Roman remains. The Romans left many traces of their presence in this countryside. One of the world's best preserved Roman amphitheaters lies in Nimes and at the Hotel d'Arleton in Arles. Food fanatic. France's most familiar fare like baguettes, boeuf bourguignon, etc. can be found in every part of France, but delicious regional specialties awaits the adventurous. In Lyon, try the quenelles de brochet fish dumplings traditionally made with pile from local streams. Meanwhile, travelers to the Alsace region will find flammekuche, a hearty bacon and onion tart topped with cream fraiche. All are best accompanied by a glass of incomparable French wine. Burgundy and Burgundy, Beaujolais and Beaujolais, and so on. Explore a magic kingdom. So many picturesque castles, villages, and gardens abound in France that it is stepping into a fairy tale. This is the country of Charles Perrault, author of the versions of Cinderella and the Sleeping Beauty that most people heard as children. It's said that Perrault drew inspiration from sites such as Chateau d'Us, a 15th century castle where visitors can wander into the bedchamber, gape at the dungeon, and stroll through the terrace gardens.
Which are some of the best French countryside to visit? Kaonyane, Brittany. A historic hemp-weaving village, Kaonyane is named after Saint Ronan, the Irish hermit who founded it in the Middle Ages. In the 15th century, the Dukes of Brittany poured money into building a striking Gothic church. During the Renaissance, the village became famous for its weaving industry, providing canvas sails for the East India Company and the French Navy. Visit the Musée d'Art et d'Histoire. The East India Company's offices still stand on the village square, as well as 17th century merchants' dwellings. The 16th century Chapelle Notre Dame de Bonne Nouvelle has stained glass windows by 20th century painter Alfred Messier. A sacred path on the hillside attracts pilgrims. There are great views from Kaonyane Mountain, Rochefort and Terre, Brittany. Halfway between the Gulf of Morbihan and Merlin's Fort de Brocéliande, this medieval village was once a Rochefort stronghold, controlling trade routes thanks to its position on a rocky outcrop above deep valleys. Traces of its prosperous history, also linked to slate mining, can be seen in the upper village, with its covered market, 12th century church, medieval castle, 19th century chateau, and 16th and 17th century mansions. The town became a favorite with artists early last century, thanks to U.S. portraitist Alfred Klotz, who bought the castle and started a tradition of floral window boxes that continues today. Events include summer concerts and a medieval fair. Pesmes, Burgundy. A historic village on the Yonne River, picturesque Pesmes is approached via an avenue of 100-year-old plane trees, its 17th century castle reflected in the calm waters. Coveted in the Middle Ages for its strategic position between Grey on the River Saône and regional capital Dole, it was by turns Frankish, Germanic, Burgundian and Spanish, before becoming French in the reign of Louis XIV 1643-1715. The village bears witness to this rich past. Winemakers' houses line the stone streets, and the 13th century Church of St. Hilaire has an impressive bell tower with a multicolored tiled roof. There's also a ruined castle and two medieval gateways. The 17th century forge, operational until 1993, is now a museum. Recueillir, Alsace. Known for its aromatic wines and distinctive Alsatian architecture, Recueillir is a striking village 65 kilometers from Strasbourg. Its narrow streets are lined with 16th century half-timbered houses with carved window frames and flower-decked balconies. Some of the shop signs are the work of Jean-Jacques Hancy Waltz, 1873-1951, an Alsatian illustrator and caricaturist, and there's a museum of his art. For local history, check out the Musée de Dolder and its 13th century tower, great views. Nearby are the Thieves Tower Museum, with dungeons and torture chamber, and the Maison de Vigneron, with old winemaking equipment. From the village, follow the Grand Cross wine trail on foot or by bike. Dôme, Dordogne, a gate in the medieval fortifications of Dôme, photograph Getty Images. On a cliff high above the Dordogne, Dôme has exceptional views over the surrounding countryside. One of the most beautiful Basties fortified villages, in southwest France, it has a turbulent history. House. The Belvedere de la Barre is a great viewpoint, and Château de Montfort, La Roque-Gageac village and the Jardin de Marquis are among attractions nearby.